What better thing than to set up a foster family situation where those children can also come to the foster family situation with huge dramas as to what happened with their real parents. But then they go out in the real world and in come the next set of foster people. So at the risk of sounding ruthlessly formula, this is what makes good soap.
And in the 80s, probably the most famous foster child of them all was Bobby.
I don't want to hear it. I'm sick to death of all your stinking lies. I hate you. I hate the lot of you.
Bobby was a great character. She was a real rough nut, neglected, homeless, had a real chip on her shoulder, very unloved, and of course she grew out of it.
By the power vested in me and according
Bobby
to
had a few
God,
romances, but
holy
definitely her childhood sweetheart was Frank, Alex Paps, who she eventually ended up marrying. Bobby got a great new haircut for the wedding in particular, and I won't leave this one down for a long time. It was very short all over, little jagged fringe like this, bit of a colour, big earrings, very 80s.
Let's get this thing over. Whoa, quick, get a glass.
The marriage didn't last very long. There were a couple of very failed romances in between. And then she met her last lovely husband, who was the real father of her foster child, Greg.
Elle Stewart had lived in Summer Bay for many, many years when a young woman called Ailsa Hogan came into the town, played by Judy Nunn.
Ray and I were husband and wife for 13 years, and he's a great mate. So it was 13 years I played Ailsa, and she was a good guy.
She had previously been in jail. I wasn't aware of this at the time, but she was in jail for stabbing her father to death with a bread knife. It was sort of self-defence, if you like. But I must admit, in scenes we did in the kitchen where Alf and Ailsa were both in the kitchen, if she ever got close to a knife, I was very twitchy, I must admit, and gave her a wide berth. We had a bunyip scare at one stage. I didn't even know what a bunyip was.
What's wrong?
Oh, God, come off the grass.
Oh, Donald, it's true. Believe me. I was walking along the road and it was lurking in the bushes waiting for me.
For week after week, a bunyip terrorised the community. There were bunyip tea towels, there were bunyip rissoles, there were bunyip everything. And people used to come to Summer Bay just to see, or to hope to get a glimpse of the bunyip. He was a bit like the Loch Ness Monster.
When I was doing Home and Away, it was very funny because they in the diner set they've got this phone and it's like a hamburger.
Bayside Diner.
And the wonderful thing is that all the terrible deaths that happen always ring through on the hamburger phone. And there, some actor standing there with this stupid hamburger to his ear saying, "What? She's dead? She fell out of a window? Oh, my God, how can you take that seriously on a hamburger phone?"
You all right?
I'm fine.
Probably need a soak in a hot tub, eh?
Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty good day for Don, eh? Haven't seen him that happy in a dog's age.
I think she loved him, I think he loved her. He did. And when she died, just fell down dead in the diner one day on the job. We had a full house too. I think it was most inconsiderate of her.
I was killed off in the most, ignominious fashion. I mean, I just clutched my breast and fell to the floor going, ah, and then was never seen of again. It's the cliffhanger for the end of the year. And he came back and they're having my funeral, which made me laugh a great deal because they shot that before the end of the year and it was shot up at Palm Beach at 4:30 in the morning and the ashes that they threw into Palm Beach all came back and hit him in the face, you see.
Goodbye.
Generally speaking, our storylines have been quite strong, apart from times when Bobby, who had died some 3 years previously, appeared in Ailsa's fridge one day in the freezer. So Ailsa was having a few mental problems at the time.
While other soaps had psychotic killers, Home and Away had a killer log, and that's what brought about the untimely end of Bobby. which was one of the most watched of all episodes.
Bobby died on the day of a big fair, and they were on a boat just going for a joyride. The boat bumped into something and Bobby sort of went flying out of the boat, and then that was it, really. She was in a coma for a week. Everyone sort of saying goodbye, very distressed.
I told him Bobby was gone.
How can she be breathing and be dead? It doesn't make sense. It can't be right.
Oh, for God's sake, Greg, get a hold of yourself.
My boyfriend at the time, he worked on Home and Away, and he was the man who killed Bobby. And I remember we were in a supermarket one day, and this woman, this older woman, walks up and just starts beating him with her handbag, just like laying into him, saying, "You killed Bobby! You killed Bobby!"
Surprisingly still, you think after 8 years they'd forget a bit, but they don't, or they think that they know you. Do we work together? I must know your brother, or where have you worked, that sort of thing. Do we go to school together? They can't quite pick it. And sometimes I would say, well, I used to work on television. And they go, no, I don't know from there. So I've got egg on my face, so quite often I don't say anything.
Next, the facts of life growing up on a soap.
Now I'm completely publicity shy. I completely freak out if I see my name in print.
Planting a seed for the future.
I did want to be a vet, and everyone used to say to me, "You want to be like Nikki the vet."
And the most memorable exit.
Some people spend an eternity looking for love.
She might not think you had true love on your mind.
But usually, it finds you. Someday, he's no one special, but boy, is she something.
I don't think you'll believe who was just in here.
It would never work, would it?
It's the sort of thing that happens in a dream.
Hey, baby, who is it?
I should leave. I'm so sorry.
Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts.
Thank you, God.
In the romantic blockbuster Notting Hill, Sunday.
This, you might learn something.
I remember that we were all quite shocked when Sally finally got breasts. That was a big event because at the end of one season, she had nothing. They came back after the break and it looked like they'd been eating a lot of chicken in the Fletcher household.
That looks fantastic.
Just catching the bus to go all the way down to see Vinny twice a week, Alf. I'm going to have to think about selling my van.
Well, I can give her a lift down there tomorrow if that's a help.
Oh, that's really nice of you, Alf, but I couldn't ask you to do that.
You're not asking, love. I'm offering. I do a heck of a lot of work in the diner with Ada Nicodemo and Danny Racco. And they're terrific kids, you know, they're always having a shot. Respect is a word they have not heard of. And they call me a forgetful old bugger. Poor old bugger, he's getting on now, you know, you've got to make allowances. And I call them a couple of upstart wogs. And we've got the best relationship. I mean, it's just fantastic. I love it.
Hey, good on you, go on down.
Yeah, beginner's luck, I guess. Looking back at it, yeah, it's such a big thing for a young person to handle. Now I'm completely publicity shy. I completely freak out if I see my name in print, you know. So for a young person, it is huge. I look back and I go, oh my God, I was on the cover of TV Week almost every week for, you know, a certain amount of time. It was just, it really was quite incredible.
Congratulations, hustler. It's a pity there isn't a trophy. You deserve one.
Maybe there is one.
Like what?
Everything that could have gone wrong with Sophie did. From boyfriends dying in car accidents, father beating her up, having, you know, falling pregnant at a young age, having bosses sort of, you know, try and hit on her. You know, everything happened. She had a rough teenage time, I think.
So we go back into that verse again, right? That why do boys all play the fool?
and then act like they're really cool if they're skinny or if they're fat. Is that right? I'm glad I'm not like that. Why, this is the big ending.
Craig was an absolute character. McLaughlin could mess about. He could have 30 scenes for the day and be having a shot at people and just having fun. Somebody would say action, bang, and it'd always be right there with him. It used to drive me mad, you know. I hated him for it.
I had to sing into a hairbrush like you would as a little girl in front of your mirror. I remember the scene. Craig McLaughlin is supposed to be standing behind a doorway listening in. And back then Craig was quite a huge, you know, he was quite big, and, you know, with his music as well. I just remember dying and I just couldn't do it properly, and it was probably the most traumatic sort of thing I'd ever had to do on Home and Away.
They're all dumb and that's a fact. I'm glad I'm not like that.
Bravo! Yes! Terrific! That was good. You've got to do that at the amateur night. So...
Sophie didn't get stage fright when it came to her biggest performance on Home and Away.
Don't forget to breathe.
So, do you want me to stay?
Yes.
Right. I wish we could have found Pepper for you, but it looks like it's just you and me, love.
Sophie had a child, and that's how I kind of left the show. I never thought I'd be coming back 10 years later.
What are you going to call her? Tomorrow. Baby, tomorrow.
We belong together, you and I forever and ever.
The theme song has been very popular around the world. Little kids, I believe, won't go to bed sometimes at night until they hear the theme song.
Of course I remember Home and Away theme song. I had to sing it, for goodness sake, in a pantomime. You know we belong together.
As for me singing the theme song, I don't think there's enough money on the planet to get me to sing the theme song. And if there was, I just don't think it's fair to mankind.
I have to agree with Ray. Singing is not his game. It's safer for everyone if he sticks to that job at the diner. After this, one of the biggest stars of a country practice.
I remember the name of the wombat because someone at the time used to call me that.
Of course I know it. It's right on the tip of my tongue. The wombat's name was...
What was it? Landslides, mudslides, snake bites, leprosy, and a myriad of lingering fatal diseases.
Charlie Cousins fell off the silo in Bellbird. It was so graphic. It was so horrifying. It was nightmarish. I couldn't stand it. That was the end of soaps for me. I never watched another soap.
Personally, I'd want to go out in a rain of gunfire. So it's the big showdown.
But you'd like to leave a small kind of opening in the story, so if you needed to step back, if your film career hasn't worked out and you want to come back after a couple of years.
Slow, painful death where everyone's gathered around and watching.
Edna. Drowning's a good one.
No, I think I'd use the hold option. I'd make sure that my death was really... Well, there was always a bit of mystery about it.
A young man in his early 20s went missing yesterday while surfing in the swell off Summer Bay. At the same time, a large shark, estimated at 2 to 3 metres, was sighted in nearby waters.
There's always the possibility in your late 80s, early 90s, you will need to leave the rock industry.
They'll tell stories about me, man. Sonny Bennett, bad guy. I'll be remembered. Go on, Sonny.
Thud. Or you can do it without all the drama, like the exit Shirley Gilroy chose in A Country Practice.
Well, when I left A Country Practice, I didn't want to do a long, lingering death, and I said to the writers, "Now, don't send me out that way because I won't do it. You know, if you want to write that in, then I'll leave earlier." That's a big threat, isn't it?
Phone me from Brisbane, OK?
Yes, I will, darling. OK. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I suggested that I go down in a plane because then they could just hear about it on the radio and I was never seen again, which is much better, you know, because then you don't have to do all that gory dying acting.
Hope Shirley made it in time.
In a message just to hand, a light plane has been reported missing. The aircraft, believed to be on a charter flight from Burrigan to Brisbane, had earlier radio difficulty and was redirected to Coffs Harbour.
Frank heard about Cheryl's death when he was out pruning the roses with the wombat, and he looked to the sky and he said, "Please, God, no," because he thought it must be the plane, and of course it was. And the episodes after that were quite horrendous. I had to do a lot of crying, and to do that I just used to think of some of my bad performances.
Cheryl gave it to me during that time we all thought she might have had cancer. If she died, I was to give it to you on the first wedding anniversary after the event.
I was asked to buy Cheryl in her will, to have dinner with friends, dance with a beautiful lady, and call out my undying love from the top of a cliff. It was miserable. It was raining. It was sleet. There wasn't any snow, but it was a dreadful morning.
All the harebrained things you've ever asked me to do, Shirley Gilroy. This takes the cake.
We did the scene, and I called for my robe and towel. I turned around, and the wardrobe lady was looking agape at me, sort of, you know. And I said, where? She said, oh, it's back at the caravan, 200 metres away. So I had to stand there like a stunned mullet while the crew looked on and laughed a lot.
And a free spirit! I know you are, Cheryl. Yes, I know you are.
But the death scene that topped them all still gets fans choked 17 years later. We all remember where we were when it happened. In our lounge rooms, of course.
The scene we all remember from that was the scene where Molly died. I think Australia stopped at that moment.
I think I was at home. I think I was watching it along with everyone else. But was I with Annie? I think I might have been with Annie watching her die. Molly, that is, not Annie.
The whole of Australia went into a mourning period. Me, I didn't even know she was sick.
Oh, my God. Do you know, I got to work with Toni last year on a play, and I just could not believe I was working with Molly. I was in Geraldton. I remember that whole last shot where she's on the chair and he's way off in the fields and he turns around, that moment where she closes her eyes and sees him running towards her. Oh, my God, it was a real tearjerker. I loved that episode.
Oh, God, it was tragic. Bawled my eyes out.
Everyone cried. Everyone cried, for sure.
Next week...
There's a man running around Tasmania in a little yellow car. His name's Aristos. Join Aristos in the Apple Isle for BYO Kitchen and the announcement of our millionaire shopper. That's 7 o'clock Sunday, right after Harry's practice. But next on 7, the Tennis Masters Cup from Shanghai.